Well, joining us live is Johnathan Fisher, Cauldron Energy CEO. So thank you very much for joining us. Talking about Iran not really complying with its nuclear obligations, basically for the first time in 20 years. Talk us through the IAEA and their compliance and the treaty and what came out of that.
Yes, so the IAEA for the first time stated that Iran hasn't complied with their obligations. Whether or not Iran actually complied before, but or not, who knows? But you know, Iran has been sitting on a stockpile of 20% material, and they've been enriching it upwards 60% and above, up to weapons grade, which is obviously what caused the IAEA to act.
Okay, and yes, that's the International Atomic Energy Agency. I should have said that before, but
Yep.
yeah, very interesting indeed. So that is like the big issue, obviously, and the IAEA has been doing a lot of regular inspections. But talk us through the importance of that and the enrichment process with uranium.
Yeah, so the concern there is absolutely no reason to hold 60% material. There is no civilian use for that other than further enrichment to get weapons grade uranium. So when we look in the civilian sector, when people know I mine uranium, we dig uranium out of the ground at 0.7%, and that is generally enriched to about 5% for civilian uses and up to 20% for research reactors. In fact, like the reactor here in Sydney is around 20%. To go any north of 20, you've got a military use for that.
All right, because if we look at what we do in terms of exports, we export uranium, but that's at a civil rate.
So absolutely,
right?
we export 0.7%, which is yellow cake, and our uranium exports are obligated under the legislation in Australia as Australian obligated nuclear material. It cannot be used for military purposes. In fact, if we do proceed with AUKUS, we won't even be allowed to fuel our own submarines with Australian material because that's classed as a military use.
So what do we do in that instance?
We would have to buy uranium from a supplier that allows dual use or military use, probably the US.
All right, that's for another conversation, I think. But yeah, so the civilian and weapons grade, so what are you going to be watching out for in this instance? Because it was a sophisticated target from Israel's perspective, and they certainly eliminated a number of, I think it was 5 nuclear scientists, along with the nuclear area. But it's underneath, isn't it, that they really wanted to target? What do we need to look out for in terms of that?
So it seems that Israel was not targeting reactors per se, and people should not panic. There won't be a fallout event. They were targeting enrichment facilities where you convert and then enrich from 5% up to maybe 90% for weapons. Those enrichment facilities are not reactors, so if you have a kinetic event there, you may have a release of some uranium hexafluoride, which is a gas, but you don't have nuclear fallout or anything like that. But Iran has it's got a couple of sites, Natanz and Fordow, its 2 main sites, and you know, they're buried deep underground, so banks and banks and banks of centrifuges, which are machines that spin at very fast pace and can very, very, very carefully separate U-238, which is basically inert or depleted, from U-235, which is the fissile material.
So what is left underground is the concern, isn't it?
So the machinery underground, the centrifuges are underground, and then where is the stockpile of material, either fully enriched or at 60%, it'll be kept as a gaseous form, which is uranium hexafluoride.
And getting back to the non-compliance from Iran for 2 decades, that seems like a long time. But is that an accurate estimate, do you think?
So in the early 2000s, obviously there was an agreement with Iran for it to halt any future ambitions of weaponry, and that IAEA inspections regime has continued since that time with various levels of success, right, and compliance. And so, you know, it was a major concern to see that for the first time in 20 years, the IAEA has come out and said, actually, you know, there are some fairly serious non-conformances here. And then some of the reporting off the back of that has said that, you know, the Iranian regime could have been in the position to produce a weapon in actually a really short time frame.
Oh, very interesting information there. Thank you so much.